Just take a breath with me for a moment. Breathe in and out.
Okay.
Now, imagine this. What if the vibrant, abundant life, you picture the one with the real freedom, the deep joy, the kind of success you genuinely desire, what if it's separated from the life you're living right now by just one single thing?
Hmm. Not a mountain of problems.
Not a mountain of complex problems, not a fundamental lack of money or connections or opportunity out there in the world.
Just one thing.
Just one solitary action, an action that feels so significant, maybe so final, that most people spend their entire lives, unconsciously avoiding it.
It feels almost counterintuitive when you put it like that, doesn't it?
Right.
We're often taught, or we just assume, that big life changes need, well, everything to line up perfectly. Years of effort, the right circumstances, all the resources in place first.
The stars aligning.
Exactly. So the idea that it could all hinge on just one internal shift is, well, it's arresting. It stops you in your tracks.
Absolutely arresting. And that's precisely the powerful idea we're doing a deep dive into today. This exploration is all about that one incredibly potent principle, the profound, almost you could say miraculous power of a definite, committed decision.
It's not literal magic, of course.
No, not like defying physics, but it works like magic in how it transforms things. And you find this principle again and again underpinning the greatest achievements throughout history. It's woven right into the fabric of success, really, in every field imaginable.
And this isn't just abstract philosophy floating around.
No.
The insights we're looking at, they come from deep observation, right?
Where?
From really detailed studies of people who did things that seemed impossible. People like Andrew Carnegie, Henry Ford, Thomas Edison.
Giants.
Right, the people Napoleon Hill spent decades studying. And also from pivotal moments in history, moments that genuinely reshaped the world. It's about uncovering a fundamental, observable truth about our potential, about how we actually actively participate in shaping our own reality.
So let's unpack this together. What exactly is this one thing, this definite decision, and how on earth can it hold such immense power? I mean, it sounds almost too simple, doesn't it?
It can seem that way on the surface.
But the idea is that it can literally be the catalyst, the thing that transforms your current reality into the future you want. I'm really keen to dig into the mechanics of how this is supposed to work.
It really does cut through so much noise. When you look at success, however you define it, from the outside, it often looks incredibly complicated.
Right, layers upon layers.
But what if there's a single starting point? A fundamental internal act that kicks everything off, from which all that complexity then unfolds, successfully. That's the territory we're exploring, getting right to the heart of that ignition point for transformation.
Okay, let's ground this. Let's use a massive example. We need to go back in time a bit. September 12th, 1962.
Okay, setting the scene.
Yeah, try and put yourself there. It's the absolute peak of the Cold War. Intense global tension, U.S. versus the Soviet Union. And one of the biggest arenas for this fight was the space race.
And let's be honest, at that specific moment, the U.S. was behind.
Distinctly behind, yeah. The Soviets had scored some huge firsts that really grabbed the world's attention, made them look technologically superior.
Sputnik, the first satellite, that was huge.
And maybe even bigger, Yuri Gagarin, the first human in space. There was a real feeling in the U.S. of, playing catch-up. A need for something dramatic.
A shift in momentum was definitely needed.
Absolutely. There was pressure for sure, but maybe also a bit of, resignation for some people, looking at how far ahead the Soviets seemed. And yet, on that day, at Rice University in Houston, President John F. Kennedy stands up in front of this huge crowd, and he gives a speech that was so much more than just politics. He didn't offer some timid hope or a goal with lots of conditions.
No caveats.
No. He made a declaration. So audacious, so seemingly impossible given where they were technologically, the gap they had to close. It must have electrified some people and sounded completely fantastical to others.
What did he say again? The exact words are important.
He looked out and declared, with this incredible conviction that just ignored the current limitations, we choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things. Not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
We choose. That phrasing is just incredibly powerful, isn't it?
It really is.
It's active. It's a non-negotiable declaration of intent. It's not, we hope to, or we'll try, or if things work out.
None of that.
It's a statement of conscious choice, aimed squarely at a future outcome.
Exactly. Now, let's just pause and really think about what they didn't have at that exact moment September 1962.
Right, the reality check.
The sheer engineering nightmare. They didn't have the complex guidance systems for getting to the moon. They didn't have a rocket powerful enough to even launch something that big that far.
Not even close.
They didn't have the microcomputers they'd need for navigation and control on board the spacecraft. I mean, the Apollo guidance computer, when they finally built it years later, was one of the first uses of integrated circuits, a technology that barely even existed when Kennedy gave that speech.
The mind-boggling.
They didn't have solutions for thousands and thousands of technical problems, safety issues, reentry challenges, keeping astronauts alive up there. They absolutely, definitively did not have the how figured out.
Not even remotely.
The path from here to the moon was, at that moment, mostly theory, entirely unbuilt.
So, from a purely rational standpoint, just looking at the facts on the ground in 62, the available tech, the known problems, the goal looked impossible.
Utterly insurmountable. The rational mind looking at the data would just say, no way.
Right.
So if they didn't have the how, what did they have? What allowed this impossible goal to become reality just 7 years later?
And this is the crux of it.
This is where the core idea of this deep dive really clicks. What they had, first and foremost, was a decision. And critically, it wasn't just, a casual statement like, yeah, that'd be nice. It's described as a real, committed, burn the ships, there is no other option decision.
All in. No turning back.
Exactly. That declaration, delivered with that kind of weight and conviction, it wasn't just words. It's identified as a cause set in motion.
Yeah.
It was like a command sent out, a directive given. And the principle here is that this single definite decision changed everything forever. It mobilized a whole nation's resources, its ingenuity, its will.
That's the kind of magnitude we're talking about with a major definite decision. It doesn't just react to what's already there.
No.
It creates new circumstances.
Yeah.
It acts like a fundamental pivot point. It starts a chain reaction of effort, innovation, problem solving, resource allocation, things that just wouldn't have happened otherwise.
It didn't wait for the how to show up.
No, the decision itself was the primary force that brought the how into being. It's an active assertion of a future you want, a refusal to be limited by the present.
It really makes you stop and think about the sheer nerve, right? The conviction needed to stand up and declare something so huge when all the current facts seem totally against you. And that kind of move is fundamentally different from how most of us, usually approach the big goals in our own lives.
It is completely different. I mean, we all navigate life-making decisions constantly, of course.
Sure, every day.
What to wear, what to eat, which way to drive, what show to watch tonight. These are essential everyday choices, mostly about managing our immediate reality.
Right, the small stuff, the maintenance. But the transformative principle we're digging into, that applies to the really big ones, the life-altering choices. And here's where the real self-reflection starts, drawing from these insights. Have you truly decided to be wealthy, however you personally define wealth? Have you made a firm, definite, committed decision?
Or is it more of a wish, a hope?
Exactly. Have you truly decided to be in an incredible, deeply fulfilling relationship, one that really nourishes your soul?
The kind you dream about.
Yes. Have you truly decided to start that dream business you keep thinking about? The one that feels aligned with your deepest purpose?
Or, and this is the tougher question, maybe, are you living in what's been called a state of quiet indecision?
Ooh. Quiet indecision.
Yeah. Are you kind of hoping things will just get better on their own? Waiting for the right time, for permission, for someone else to give you the green light, or for the perfect circumstances to just magically appear before you take that big leap?
And the observation, when you look at countless lives, is pretty stark. Maybe only a tiny fraction of people, perhaps around 3%, are genuinely living a life they consciously and actively chose to create. They live in homes they picked because they wanted that home. They pursue careers they designed. They experience the freedom and abundance they actually envisioned.
Which leaves the vast majority,
Yeah.
the other 97% roughly,
Yeah.
explaining why their current reality doesn't quite match up with their aspirations.
Yeah.
And these explanations, while there are many, often boil down to what are described as, well, practical, reasonable-sounding excuses.
Excuses that make perfect sense on the surface.
Absolutely. And the absolute king of all those excuses, the number one reason given, the ultimate justification for not going after the big dream.
Let me guess. I can't afford it.
Bingo. Or simply, I don't have the money.
Always comes back to money.
So often. And this is the critical point that the perspective we're exploring just aims to completely dismantle.
Okay.
The core argument is, The money is almost never the real issue standing between you and your goal.
Really? Never.
Well, almost never the root issue. The money, the resources, the opportunities, the connections you think you need, these are identified as things that come after the real issue is handled.
So the money isn't the prerequisite. You don't need it before you decide.
Exactly the opposite. In this way of thinking, money, resources, opportunities, they're the effect.
Okay.
And the real issue, the underlying catalyst, the cause that sets everything moving and brings those effects into your reality is the decision.
Wow. Okay, that completely flips the usual script, doesn't it?
It really does.
We're trained to think, okay, once I save up enough money, then I can decide to buy that house. Or if I just had the funding, then I could decide to launch this business.
Right, the if-then model based on current resources.
But this principle suggests it works the other way around. Once you make the definite decision to buy the house, the means to afford it will start to show up. Or make the decision to launch the business and the funding will begin to appear.
That's the mechanism described, yes.
Yeah.
Waiting for the how to be crystal clear, waiting for the money to be sitting in the bank, waiting for all the potential obstacles to magically vanish that keeps you firmly stuck in hoping or wishing.
Which isn't deciding.
Exactly. Hoping, wishing, waiting. They're all just different flavors of indecision. And indecision, just by its nature, keeps you anchored right where you are in the reality you say you want to change. That excuse, I don't have the money, while it sounds totally logical and reasonable to our rational mind, it's often just a very convenient cover story. A rationalization for a deeper fear, maybe unconscious, of truly committing to something big, something uncertain, something that feels potentially beyond what you think you can handle right now.
This connects so strongly with Napoleon Hill's work, doesn't it? Especially Think and Grow Rich. That book is often mentioned as key to understanding this.
Absolutely. Hill's study is foundational here. He wasn't just theorizing in an armchair. He spent over 20 years meticulously researching the lives, the habits, the philosophies of over 500 of the most successful people of his era.
Titans.
Right, not just wealthy people, but industry leaders, innovators, people who fundamentally changed the world. Andrew Carnegie, Henry Ford, Thomas Edison. Hill's explicit goal was to find the golden thread, the core principles behind their incredible achievements.
And he boiled it down to 15 key principles in the book.
He did. But it's incredibly telling, isn't it, that out of all those crucial factors, persistence, planning, faith, all of them, he dedicated an entire chapter just to the idea of decision.
Just one chapter for one idea.
Yes. That deliberate focus really highlights how important it was seen to be in the whole success equation, suggesting it's not just one factor among many, but maybe the foundational catalyst.
And what was his big observation about how these leaders made decisions compared to, well, everyone else?
Hill's finding was really clear, and it's quoted often. He saw that leaders in pretty much every walk of life make decisions promptly and definitely.
Promptly and
They
definitely.
have a clear picture in their mind of what they want, and as a direct result, they usually get it. He saw this habit prompt, definite decision-making as one of the major things that set them apart, that made them leaders, and allowed them to hit those ambitious targets.
So being decisive isn't just about personal success. It's tied into the very nature of leadership itself.
Precisely. It's that ability to set a course and stick to it, to project clarity and direction. And conversely, Hill noted that the vast majority of people who fail, or who just live lives far below what they're capable of, share the opposite habit: indecision.
The habit of indecision.
Yeah. They put off making big choices, they waffle, they second guess, they wait for perfect clarity or external validation that, frankly, rarely ever comes.
I love that image you used about the effect of being decisive. The world has a habit of making room for the man or woman whose words and actions show they know where they're going.
It's a great metaphor, isn't it?
Yeah.
It suggests that this internal certainty, when it's projected out through your words and actions fueled by that decision, somehow clears a path.
Like things just get out of the way.
Sort of. It's not about being aggressive or forcing things, but more about aligning your energy and intention so powerfully that opportunities and help just seem to show up. It implies that being prompt and definite isn't about being reckless or hasty.
Nope.
It's an outward sign of inner clarity, of unwavering commitment to what you want. And indecision, from this viewpoint, isn't being cautious or prudent. It's often just paralysis, disguised as waiting for the right time.
Okay, so if definite decision is so vital for success and leadership, and indecision is clearly a major roadblock, why is indecision just so common, so prevalent? He'll suggest it's a deeply ingrained habit, often starting way back when we're young.
He does. He points a pretty critical finger at the conventional educational system.
Uh-oh.
Well, while acknowledging it's necessary for teaching basic knowledge and skills, he saw a major weakness. It generally does not teach or actively encourage young people to make definite, purpose-driven decisions about their own lives, about their own direction, their own definition of success.
So what does it tend to teach instead, according to this view?
It trains us really well to follow instructions, to stick to a preset curriculum, to absorb information, and then prove we absorbed it on tests.
Regurgitate.
Yeah. We learn to analyze existing problems, to understand the world as it's presented to us, to find our place within the existing structures and systems. We learn to look for the well-trodden path, to fit into a predefined mold.
Rather than being encouraged or even taught how to create our own path.
Exactly. The emphasis is so often on analyzing circumstances, evaluating options based on the data we can see right now, which is the job of the rational mind, using the senses, rather than consciously commanding our direction. We get really good at reacting to the physical world, at assessing what is per mental meant based on what our senses tell us.
And how does that kind of early training shape our fundamental understanding of ourselves, of our own potential?
It leads to, arguably, a profound and very limiting misunderstanding of who and what we really are deep down. We start to identify too strongly with just our physical selves, with our current situation, with the feedback our senses give us about what is.
We become defined by the circumstances.
Effectively, yes. We're trained to be servants of our circumstances, constantly reacting to what the external world throws at us, instead of understanding ourselves as masters of our direction, capable of actively shaping our reality through conscious choice and will. It instills this belief that our current visible reality is the only reality that truly matters, and that our power is limited to just fiddling with the pieces we can physically see and touch.
Which brings us to a really mind-expanding idea that's absolutely central to this whole understanding the concept that we are much more than just these physical bodies we walk around in.
This is where the perspective really shifts, moving beyond the purely physical. Think about it like this. When you say my hand or my foot, who is the I that possesses them?
Good question.
The person you see in the mirror, that's your physical body. An incredible, complex biological machine, no doubt. But from this perspective, it's an instrument you use. It's not the totality of who you are.
So there's a you that's not the body.
Precisely. The you is identified as the non-physical side of your personality, the unseen part. And you see echoes of this idea from thinkers across different fields. Abraham Lincoln, for instance, had this powerful insight. To believe in the things you can see and touch is no belief at all, but to believe in the unseen is a triumph and a blessing.
Wow.
Making a true, definite decision for something that doesn't exist yet in your physical world is fundamentally an act of believing in that unseen potential, that non-physical possibility. It requires using faculties or capabilities that reside in this non-physical part of you, capabilities that most people aren't even consciously aware they have, let alone actively using.
This really reminds me of Albert Einstein's way of talking about different kinds of thinking, especially that quote about the intuitive mind.
It's a perfect parallel and absolutely essential for getting this framework. Einstein famously called the intuitive mind a sacred gift and the rational mind a faithful servant.
Right.
And he lamented pretty sharply, we have created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. Let's really unpack that distinction.
Okay, tell me more about the servant first. The rational mind.
The faithful servant, your rational mind, operates mainly through your 5 physical senses, what you can see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. Its job is to interact with and analyze the physical world, the world of what is right now.
Dealing with tangible reality.
Exactly. It's the part of you that looks at your bank statement and correctly tells you the number printed there. It assesses physical distances, identifies visible obstacles, calculates risks based on past experiences and current data. It's incredibly good at analyzing the present, tangible reality.
But there's a but.
There's a huge but when it comes to creating something new. The servant's fundamental limitation is that it cannot perceive or conceive of or navigate towards something that does not yet physically exist and cannot be measured by the senses.
If it can't see it or touch it.
It's basically blind to it. If it's not here now, measurable, or something you can logically extrapolate from existing data, the servant just draws a blank. So while it's a wonderful, essential tool for managing the world, that is, it's described as a terrible master for trying to create a future that isn't yet, precisely because its whole scope is limited to past and present sensory input.
So the servant is great for optimizing what you already have, but totally inadequate for leading you to something fundamentally new.
That's the idea. It's bound by the evidence of the physical world. Now let's talk about the gift, the intuitive mind.
Okay.
This operates through your higher faculties. These are your non-physical tools for creation and perception. What are these incredible powers? There's perception, your ability to consciously choose your point of view, your interpretation of any situation, regardless of what your senses are telling you.
Choosing how you see things.
Yes. There's memory, not just storing past events, but the potential to tap into information and abilities far beyond what you consciously learned. There's the power to genuinely think, to originate completely new ideas and solutions, not just process old information or react.
True thinking, not just processing.
Right. Then there's the will, that amazing power of focus. The ability to hold one single idea, one image, one vision on the screen of your mind, shutting out all distractions, all contradictory sensory input, all external noise, for as long as you choose.
Laser focus.
Exactly. There's imagination, described as the workshop of the soul, the non-physical space where all potential realities exist, where plans get formed, inventions are born, futures are built in the unseen. And finally, there's intuition, that quiet knowing, that gut feeling or sudden insight, which is seen as your connection to a greater, maybe infinite intelligence.
These are the capabilities we tap into when we're not just reacting to what's right in front of us.
Precisely. And here's the crucial connection. When you make a real, committed, definite decision for something that's a significant leap from your current reality, something your senses and rational mind might say is impossible,
Yeah.
you are not primarily relying on your servant, the rational mind and the senses it depends on. You are actively engaging and using these higher faculties, the sacred gift.
How so?
You use your imagination to vividly build the image of the future you want, to feel yourself already living that new reality. You use your will to hold that vision steady, to stay focused on that outcome, even when your physical senses and everything around you are screaming that it's not here, that it's impossible, that you don't know how.
So you're choosing to operate from the unseen world.
You're consciously choosing to operate from the non-physical world of cause, starting a new chain of effects by setting a new cause in motion with your decision, rather than staying trapped in the physical world of effects, which is just the result of past causes and decisions or the lack of them.
So decision is like the bridge, connecting the physical world of what is to the unseen world of what could be by firing up these higher faculties.
That's a great way to put it. It's the conscious act of directing your non-physical energy, your potential, towards a specific outcome. You use the gift to lead, while keeping the servant ready to analyze and manage the physical steps that start to appear after you've set the direction.
This whole idea, that we're more than just physical bodies operating in some unseen realm, it actually ties into things we see every day now, like modern technology. Think about the power packed into your smartphone compared to all the computing power NASA had for the entire moon landing back in the 60s.
It's staggering, isn't it? The progress is just mind-boggling.
And how do these devices work now? A lot of their power isn't coming from physical wires stretched everywhere. They work by tapping into an unseen world of frequencies and vibrations.
Right. Information, communication, energy itself zipping through the air through fields of pure energy and information.
It's a powerful analogy, really, for understanding our own nature.
It really is.
Yeah.
The claim here is that you as a human being, a spiritual being living in a physical body, are infinitely more sophisticated and powerful than any gadget you can hold. You are fundamentally a transmitting and receiving station for energy.
Like a biological radio.
In a sense. Your very essence is pure energy, capable of operating on countless different levels, different frequencies.
I've heard about things like Kirlian photography, which supposedly captures an energy field or aura around living things.
Exactly. Those are attempts to visually represent the fact that we and other living beings aren't just solid lumps of matter. We're dynamic masses of energy, constantly vibrating, functioning on frequencies. And this leads us straight to a core principle described in many different traditions, a governing law of the universe itself, the law of vibration.
Okay, the law of vibration. How does that work in this context?
The basic statement is simple. Nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. Even on a subatomic level, physics agrees with this.
Yeah.
Applied to us, to the human experience, it means that every thought you think, every emotion you feel, every action you take, each has its own unique vibrational frequency.
Everything vibrates.
Everything. And just like a radio can tune into countless different stations broadcasting on different frequencies, the universe is seen as containing infinite frequencies of thought and reality. that you can tune into, consciously or unconsciously, with your dominant state of being.
Okay, infinite frequencies. How does that connect to the results we actually see in our lives? Our jobs, our money, our health?
This is where it gets incredibly practical and maybe a bit confronting. The results you are currently experiencing in your life, your income level, the quality of your relationships, your physical health, your career, your general sense of well-being,
Yeah.
are understood to be a direct and precise match, a perfect reflection of the dominant frequency you are thinking and vibrating on.
Whoa, a direct match.
A direct match. Your prevailing thoughts, your core beliefs, the emotions you habitually feel, they create a specific internal vibration, an energetic signature. And that vibration can only attract circumstances, opportunities, and people that are in energetic harmony with it.
So if my dominant thoughts are constantly about scarcity, worry, what I don't have, I'm basically tuned into a lack frequency.
Precisely. And according to this principle, it's literally a violation of the law of vibration to expect results of abundance, prosperity, or vibrant health if you're predominantly thinking thoughts of limitation, fear, worry, or lack.
You can't get rich results thinking poor thoughts.
You simply cannot. It's like tuning your internal radio to the static-filled lack station and somehow expecting to hear the crystal-clear abundance broadcast. Your internal state, your dominant frequency, is seen as the primary determinant of your external reality because it governs what you resonate with and therefore attract.
It's a huge reframing. Our internal state isn't just how we feel about our external reality.
True.
It's an active, energetic broadcast that's actually shaping it.
It shifts the whole focus, doesn't it? From trying to manipulate the external circumstances first to realizing that the internal shift must come first. That internal shift is the cause of the external change. And this is precisely where decision becomes the most critical tool you have. It's the conscious mechanism for choosing and then working to maintain a specific internal state, a specific frequency that aligns with the results you want, regardless of what your current external reality, reported by your senses, might be screaming at you.
Which brings us right back to that fundamental dilemma we talked about, that catch-22.
Exactly. You're currently living on frequency X, getting X results. You have this clear vision, this desire for frequency Y, the life you really want. You think, yes, I want that. I want to go there. But almost immediately,
The servant kicks in.
the faithful servant, your rational mind, fueled by your senses, springs into action. It looks hard at your current reality, frequency X. It analyzes the bank balance, the current job, the existing network, all your past failures, all the sensory data of what is.
All the proof that Y is impossible.
Right. And based only on that data from frequency X, it generates its logical, reasonable objections. But we can't see how to get to Y from here. There's no visible bridge. We don't have the money. We don't know the right people. It requires stuff we don't have. It's just not possible based on the evidence right here at X.
And because you can't see the whole clear step-by-step how from where you're standing right now, you hesitate.
You pause. You wobble.
Yeah.
You don't make the definite decision to commit to frequency Y.
And what happens then?
As long as you stay in that state of indecision, focusing on the lack of a visible how from within frequency X, you just keep thinking, feeling, and acting mostly on frequency X. And what results does frequency X produce?
The same old X results.
Exactly. You get stuck in a self-perpetuating loop, wanting something different but paralyzed by needing to see the whole path before you take the first step. And so you never actually start the journey to Y.
So the real trap isn't actually lacking the resources or the opportunity. It's needing to fully understand and see the entire how from your current spot before you commit to the goal.
That is identified as the core trap, the thing that keeps, the 97% stuck.
Yeah.
And this is precisely why the wisdom from people like Steve Jobs is so spot on here. He famously said, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You only connect them looking backwards.
Right, I remember that.
So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future.
That trust, that willingness to step out without the full map, it feels absolutely crucial.
And according to this framework, that necessary trust, or you could call it faith, it isn't some passive thing you just hope to receive. It's actively generated and strengthened by the decision itself.
The decision creates the trust.
It fuels it. When you make a true, committed, definite decision to get to frequency Y, to achieve that specific goal, to live that desired life, even though your senses and the rational mind they serve cannot see the path yet, you are consciously engaging your sacred gift, your higher faculties.
How does that engagement actually work in the moment of deciding?
Well, you use your imagination. that workshop of potential realities, to vividly construct and experience the feeling of already being on frequency Y, of having already achieved that goal.
Yeah.
You build the internal reality first.
Feel it as real now.
Yes. Then you engage your will, that immense power of focused concentration, to hold that vision steady in your mind, to consciously think from the state of having achieved it, to feel what it's like to be the person who lives that life, even when your 5 physical senses and the whole external world are reporting back that your current reality is totally different, maybe even the complete opposite.
So you're deliberately choosing to prioritize and operate from the unseen reality you're creating inside, rather than letting yourself be dictated by the seen reality you're currently experiencing outside.
Exactly. You are letting the gift lead the way into the unseen, rather than allowing the servant, which is limited to the seen, to hold you back. And this is where the real secret, as it's put in this perspective, lies.
Okay, the secret.
You do not need to have the money, the resources, the connections, or the perfect plan all figured out before you make the decision.
That's the opposite of what we're taught.
Completely. You need to make the definite decision first, because that decision is the cause that starts the shift in your vibration, your thinking, which in turn begins to attract the money, the resources, the connections, and allows the perfect plan to unfold step by step as you move forward. The how reveals itself after the what has been definitively chosen.
That need to trust an internal vision over all the external evidence, it feels incredibly challenging, and it really shows how deeply our normal way of thinking roots us in just the physical world and the rational mind's limits.
It is challenging, precisely because it asks you to lead with the gift, which society often tells us to forget or distrust, rather than the servant, which society constantly reinforces and rewards. Decision is the tool that allows the gift to take the steering wheel.
Let's look at a couple more examples, stories that really drive this home, drawn from the discussions around this whole idea. There's that simple but really powerful story about Pat and John, the young couple wanting to buy their first house.
Yes, that's a classic illustration. They were coached through this exact principle. They desperately wanted a home, but they were completely fixated on what they saw as the huge, insurmountable obstacle. They just didn't have the down payment saved up.
All their focus was on the lack of money.
Entirely. And the key insight given to them was, you don't actually need the money right now. The real issue is you haven't truly made the decision to buy the house yet.
Wow. Just shifted the focus completely.
Right back to the cause. Their focus was totally on the effect of the missing money as the reason they couldn't have the goal, when the actual barrier, according to this framework, was the missing cause, a firm, definite decision. They were stuck in wishing, hoping, worrying about the money.
Instead of deciding.
Exactly. The moment a true, committed decision is made, the kind that cuts off all other possibilities, you initiate that vibrational shift. You compel your thinking to align with the frequency of having the house. And that starts the process of attracting the means, finding the way.
So it wasn't about getting the resource first. It was about the internal conscious commitment.
Precisely. And another powerful example loops right back to the moonshot. After JFK made that incredibly bold decision, he turned to the guy who had to figure out the how, the lead rocket scientist, Dr. Wernher von Braun.
Right.
Kennedy basically asked him, okay, we've decided we're going. Now what's it going to take?
And von Braun's answer was famously short and to the point.
Just 5 words, but incredibly significant in this context. He said, the will to do it.
Not a list of technologies or budgets.
No, not initially. He pointed straight to a non-physical faculty he named the will.
Which is one of those crucial higher faculties we were just talking about.
It is. The will is that inherent power of focus, the capacity to concentrate all your mental and energetic resources on the goal you've chosen, to maintain your position on the frequency of that outcome, despite distractions, difficulties, apparent impossibilities.
And how do you activate that immense power? How do you direct it?
Through a committed, definite decision. The decision sparks and directs the will.
This deeper meaning of decision even connects back to the word's origins, doesn't it?
The etymology is really illuminating here. The word decision comes from Latin roots. De, meaning off, and cadir, meaning to cut.
To cut off.
Literally, to decide is to cut off all other options. It implies a level of commitment where there is no plan B. The bridges are burned behind you. You're going to that destination, period. Any path leading elsewhere is eliminated as a possibility.
That's intense.
That's the intensity of focus and commitment that the word implies, and which, according to this principle, generates tremendous power.
And when you make that kind of decisive, irreversible choice, cutting off the other options, committing fully to that higher frequency, something starts to happen. It's described as feeling almost miraculous sometimes, right?
Yeah, that's often how it feels from our usual perspective, limited by the physical world. When you make that definite decision and you consciously start to think, feel, and act from the perspective of being the person who has already achieved that goal, the person vibrating on frequency Y,
Yeah.
the unseen world, the universe, whatever you want to call it,
Mm.
begins to respond to your new internal state.
How does that actually unfold? What does it look like?
Well, your mind, now tuned into frequency Y, starts attracting new thoughts, new ideas, new insights that simply weren't accessible to you when you were stuck on frequency X. It's like you've tuned your internal radio to a completely different station.
You hear different things.
You suddenly start noticing opportunities that were probably always there, but you were blind to them before because your internal frequency wasn't a match. You might meet people who can help you in ways you couldn't possibly have planned, people who just seem to show up out of the blue.
And this isn't just random luck or coincidence.
From this perspective, no. It's understood as the law of vibration in action, manifesting as resonance. Your new internal vibration is attracting external circumstances and connections that are in harmony with it. Neville Goddard, whose work really resonates with these ideas, put it beautifully. The moment your belief matches with any state, you fuse with it.
You fuse with it.
And this union results in the activation and projection of its plots and plans. Your new conscious awareness, the state of being you've decided to occupy, the state of having the goal, becomes your perceived reality, your internal home. And you start to experience the world and encounter things from that higher frequency.
But there's a really important warning that comes with this, right? Especially when you're just starting out.
Oh, a critical one, something that trips up so many people. The guidance is really clear. Do not expect support or even understanding from the people in your life who are still primarily operating on frequency X, the frequency of your current old reality.
Because their perception is stuck where you were.
Exactly. They are looking at your present bank account, your current job, your past struggles, all the physical obstacles they can see. And based on that sensory evidence, which is all their rational mind can really process, they will likely tell you your dream is unrealistic, that you're being foolish, irresponsible, just a naive dreamer.
They can't see what you see internally.
They can't perceive the unseen potential you've aligned yourself with because their whole perspective is anchored in the physical world of effects, what is right now.
So what do you have to do in that moment when everyone's telling you you're crazy?
You must, with unwavering commitment, ignore them.
Just ignore them.
You are instructed to be more loyal to the vivid image and the feeling you hold inside your dream, your desired future, the internal picture created by your gift than you are to your current reality, which includes what your senses report and what other people tell you based on that report. You have to trust that internal image, that feeling of already being on frequency Y, even when every external indicator and every well-meaning person in your life seems to contradict it flat out.
That takes incredible inner strength. Conviction.
It really does. And in a way, it serves as a test of how definite your decision really was. Staying loyal to that internal vision, despite all the external doubt and sensory evidence, actually strengthens the vibrational shift you started. Think about history. The Wright brothers, mocked by scientists, by newspapers. They introduced the entire kingdom of the skies to humanity because they trusted their internal vision of flight, their belief in the unseen possibility, more than all the expert opinions and sensory evidence saying heavier than air machines couldn't possibly fly.
And Sir Edmund Hillary climbing Everest.
A perfect example of this exact principle. He was, a relatively unknown beekeeper from New Zealand. He didn't have the how all mapped out before he started. He actually failed on his first big attempt.
Right, he failed first.
But after that failure, there's that famous story, him standing in front of a huge photo of Mount Everest and talking directly to the mountain, saying, "You have grown all you are going to grow, but I am still growing."
Wow. That's such a powerful statement of internal commitment, isn't it?
Totally. He wasn't speaking from the frequency of past failure or looking at the mountain's intimidating physical reality. He was speaking from the frequency of his goal, from the internal image of himself as someone who would stand on that summit.
He decided.
He made a definite decision, reactivated his will, and trusted that internal image, that inner knowing, more than the external reality of a failed attempt or the mountain seeming invincible. The how, the final route, the right timing, the conditions only fully came together as he kept moving forward, driven by that initial decision.
It really hammers home that point. The decision and the trust in the unseen potential have to come first.
Yes.
And the resources, the plan, the how,
Mhm.
those are the effects that follow. They unfold afterwards.
Exactly. The path doesn't appear first, and then you decide if you want to walk it. You decide where you're going definitively, and then the path starts to appear in front of you step by step.
And the really incredible part about all this isn't some grand principle that's only reserved for, climbing mountains or going to the moon or building giant companies like Napoleon Hill studied.
Not at all. According to this understanding, the principle of definite decision works universally for everything you want to create or achieve in your life, no matter the scale.
Big or small.
Big or small, whether it's getting that specific car you've pictured, or attracting a really healthy, fulfilling relationship, or mastering a new skill, or even just finding the perfect dress for an important event, or building a business that brings in money passively while you sleep. The fundamental mechanism is exactly the same.
Make the decision, harness the faculties, align the vibration.
That's the essence of it. You have to make a definite decision, use your will and imagination, and align your internal vibration with the outcome you want.
And pulling from the personal story shared within this framework, this isn't just theory for the person explaining these ideas, right?
That's right. He shares his own journey, starting with no formal education, no prior business experience. By any conventional measure, achieving major financial success and global business reach would have seemed highly unlikely.
Against the odds.
Very much so. But he talks about making a definite decision that this was his path, that he was going to achieve that level of success. And in his experience, just as the principle describes, things started to fall into place. The right ideas came, the right people showed up, opportunities opened up, and his business expanded around the world, eventually generating significant income streams, even, as he puts it, while he was sleeping.
That personal story is such a powerful illustration. It suggests you don't need the right background or all the resources lined up first. You need the decision.
Exactly. And the core message here, the takeaway for you listening, is that you possess this exact same power within you right now.
It's already there.
It's not something external you need to go out and find or earn. This potential lives inside your non-physical self, in those higher faculties we talked about, just waiting to be consciously activated by your conscious choice, by your decision. The guidance here is really stop limiting yourself. Stop only going after things you already know how to get because there's no real growth or transformation in that comfortable zone.
Playing it safe.
Right. It's a call to stop compromising on your deepest dreams, your real desires, and to actively cultivate the habit of definite, purposeful decision-making in all areas of your life.
To make deciding itself a skill you practice, not something you shy away from.
Precisely. And this suggestion is simple. Start today, right now. Identify something you truly desire, something that feels like a genuine step towards that higher frequency life you want, something maybe just beyond your current perceived limits. And make one strong, committed, definite decision about it. Cut off the other options in your mind. Burn the mental bridges. Commit fully to that specific outcome.
Just one decision.
Just one to start. When you make that decision with real conviction, you shift your internal state. You change your dominant vibration. You set a brand new cause in motion in that unseen realm of potential. And according to this principle, the world will then begin, often in ways you couldn't possibly have predicted, to rearrange itself around that powerful, definite choice to bring you results that match your new, chosen frequency.
So just to wrap up the core idea we've really dug into here, it's the profound, almost revolutionary power of a single, definite, committed decision being the primary catalyst, the spark that changes your reality and lets you move towards your biggest dreams.
It's really the assertion that our external world isn't just a fixed set of circumstances we have to constantly react to. It's more like a reflection of our internal state, our dominant vibration. And definite decision is the most potent tool we have to consciously influence that internal state, and as a result, initiate change in the external world.
And thinking about that deep link, that connection between your internal frequency and the results that actually show up in your life. If your current reality is simply a reflection of the main frequency you've been broadcasting on, what single definite decision could you make right now, today, that would instantly start that process, that would begin shifting your vibration to align with the unseen reality, the future you truly desire?
And just consider this. What might that first tiny ripple of resonance look like? That first echo back from the universe confirming your decision? What new thought might pop into your head? What small opportunity, previously invisible, might you suddenly notice? What seemingly random encounter might happen? That journey into the unseen, into the life you desire, it all begins with that one decisive step.